So we're here at the summit of Kilauea. We have a lot of different types of ecosystems: rainforest, dry forest, coastal strand, subalpines, and we have some plants and animals that exist nowhere else on the planet. This is also a center for Hawaiian culture as well. This being the home of Pele, this area is important for Native Hawaiians. This park has been here for just over 100 years. If you were to have visited here 100 years ago, this area was impacted by cattle, pigs, all different kinds of ungulates that really did a lot of damage to the forest. With all of this degradation that was happening with all of these animals here, but almost everything on the understory was removed. And some of them were actually almost brought to the edge of extinction. In order to do rare plant recovery, it has to be free of those ungulates that are gonna chomp on them, trample on them. You know, the first few decades that the park was established, the managers understood that ungulates were a real problem. A lot of people understood that. You could see what was happening with the forest. But it was hard to figure out, how do you go about fixing the problem? And our mission at the National Park is to preserve and protect for future generations. And this is incredibly difficult when you have 20,000 goats in the park. It's almost impossible. Brian Harry was our superintendent in the 1970s, and that was at the time where we really developed an effective strategy. Brian Harry and Don Reeser and others of that generation, they really came up with a good strategy of systematically fencing and removing the animals. And so within this area, the park does systematic fencing and ungulate removal. So we have 160 miles of fence that are maintained. When you look around, you can see some of the native plants coming back on their own. Olapa, some of the mints are coming back. And you know, at this point, it really feels like climate change is that impossible problem. And you know, you look back in our history, and at one point, it was thought that removing goats was impossible. And now it's how conservation's done. And to get us to this point, it basically took 100 years of resource management. It really took resource managers taking the risk and making science-based decisions. This project is just one step. It's something that we're trying as part of a larger climate change strategy. We know we have serious, daunting challenges that are on the horizon, but we really need to be able to incorporate the best available science that we have. And we're lucky in Hawaii, we have amazing minds working on this climate science, but we as managers have important information to share as well. And the more we engage in those types of partnerships, the more useful those products will actually be for us. One of the primary mitigations that we're doing is hold the line. So that basically means protect what you have and prevent any further degradation. So that's very important. If you have an area that has no understory in it, if you have a major drought, those other trees are going to be more susceptible. So you build that resilience within that community. So holding the line is really that first step. And it really is a stepwise approach. We're moving beyond maybe just right where we were historically found. And so we've worked with the University of Hawaii at Manoa, the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit, Dr. Cliff Morden, and we've tested these new areas. So we've collected seeds, grown them in the greenhouse, and then outplanted them. And this is one of the areas here. And the next step that we need to do is incorporate some of those climate change models. We want to understand and test areas that will be good today and also in the future. We know the future is going to be different than it is today, but we don't know how. But using those models, they're not going to be perfect models, but they give us an idea of where we need to move from. The park today has made incredible strides towards protecting natural resources. 100 years ago, we were really losing a lot of the native forest. And today you see a lot of the native vegetation and the plants and the animals thriving in this area. And I'm really hopeful that in 100 years from now, that the park will be better, that we'll still have a lot of these species, and that we will be stronger.